So, I am, I made an effort this since January to try and stay apolitical, try and stay motivational and inspirational and spiritual with my posts on Facebook and with my posts to YouTube. But man, I'm having a real hard time with the political climate of the country. I understand that this election was a debacle. Some people think that there was fraud that went on. Some people don't think there was fraud that went on. And then now I see the Democrats are trying to pass legislation to standardize voting, but a lot of it has got where you won't have to show an ID. I don't understand. I wish someone would post in the comments. I'm going to open the comments. I wish someone would post in the comments or post on my Facebook page why you think voter ID is wrong. Okay? The first thing I hear people scream when they talk about voter ID, racism. Oh, it's racist. Poor minorities don't always have IDs. In what universe do people not have a state ID? I understand that there's people that don't have a driver's license. I get that. Every state has the possibility of giving you an ID. I don't get it. If you have to cash a check at the bank, you have to show ID. I don't get it. I don't understand how identification is racist. I don't get that. They think that it's going to harass people that have, I guess, maybe have a criminal record are not going to show up because they're for fear they're going to be arrested at the polling place, which is nonsense. I don't get it. Someone explain to me how showing an ID to vote to prove who you are is racist. I don't get that. Another thing they're wanting to do is they're wanting to open up voting to convicted felons. Hey guys, I hate to tell you this, but voting is a privilege, not a right. And you get that through obeying the laws of the government. And when you violate our laws and you get incarcerated, you lose your Second Amendment rights to carry a gun and you lose your right to vote. Okay? Some countries will not let you into their country if you have a criminal record from your parent nation. They won't give you a visa. If they find out that you're a convicted murderer, let's say, and you go to travel to some country, let's say you're going to Monaco, they can deny you a travel visa based on the fact that you're a criminal, convicted criminal. They can do that. Okay? We make sex offenders register. Okay? Yeah, they're trying to stop that too. I don't understand this. In what world is making you identify yourself have anything to do with race? I don't get it. Now I'll tell you what identifying yourself at the polling place does do. It prevents you from voting as someone else. It prevents me from going in and saying I'm Joe Blow and voting once for Lonnie Watson and again for Joe Blow. It prevents me from voting in the place of a person who has died, which has happened. It prevents me from voting in the place of a 7-year-old child who doesn't have the right to vote yet, which has happened. It prevents a lot of things. You register to vote, okay? You register to vote, and then on election day, you present yourself in person, you show your ID, and you vote. I don't know where the problem is with this. But see, with mail-in ballots, you don't got to do any of that. You just mail it in. Nobody knows. Nobody has any way of verifying it. Of course they're for that. Of course, they want a fast track to illegal aliens, to citizenship. Why? Because when they champion that, they're going to gain that voter loyalty. The goal of the left is to stay in power. That's the goal. Now, of course, every side wants to be elected. I get it. The Republicans want to be reelected. The Democrats want to be reelected. I get that. That goes without saying. But when you want to hold on to power through nefarious means, that's tyranny. That is nothing but tyranny. And I really don't understand how so many minorities can vote Democrat. I don't understand how many non-minorities can vote Democrat, because we want to talk about racism in this country. Robert Byrd, Democrat senator for years, Hillary Clinton's mentor, was a segregationist and a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Our president, Joe Biden, ran on the platform of segregation 40-some years ago. President Lyndon Johnson, who signed the Civil Rights Act of 1968 and was credited with championing it, did not. He signed it into law. Republicans wrote it. Okay? Republicans ended the Civil War. Republicans ended slavery. Abolitionists were Republicans. Okay? Let me tell you what Democrats did do. They invented Jim Crow laws. They invented segregation. They invented colored lunch counters. They invented colored drinking fountains. They invented segregated schools. They opposed desegregation of schools. They had to have National Guard come into their states and enforce desegregation of schools. No, it wasn't National Guard. I take that back. That's at the state level. Federal troops, the 101st Airborne, had to come in and enforce desegregation in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Montgomery, Alabama, and Birmingham, Alabama, because Democrats opposed desegregation. Okay? And suddenly now Democrats jump up and act like they're the champions of civil rights. And it just ain't true. It just ain't true. I'm sorry. Now, I'm not saying that Republicans haven't lost their way a little bit. That debacle at the Capitol, that wasn't Antifa. That wasn't Black Lives Matter. And if you believe that, I got some beachfront property to sell you in Arizona. No. Those were not infiltrators from BLM. Those were not infiltrators from Antifa. Those were good old red-blooded American Trump supporters that attacked the Capitol. I have some friends that are Washington insiders, and while there might have been 2 or 3%, there might have been a few Antifa agitators there, I'm sorry. Those were good old red-blooded American red hat-wearing people that thought they were doing the bidding of their president, and they got it wrong. They got it very wrong. And I mean, come on, let's just get to it. We lost the election, people. I don't know if there was fraud or not. Some people say there was, some people say there wasn't. The bottom line is, yes, we need election reform, okay? But where we need to do it is by identifying that the right people are allowed to vote, and that the ballots are delivered in a proper manner, and that we verify who voted. That's the bottom line. But at the end of the day, we lost the election. We lost the election a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago. While the president did great things, he lowered unemployment. Let me tell you what he did. Prison reform. Outstanding champion of prison reform, of getting African Americans out of prison, lowering prison sentences, mandatory prison sentences. There's been no president that has done more to stop the unnecessary incarceration of African Americans than Donald Trump did. Sorry, that's a fact. Okay? It's not a happy fact, but it's a fact. He did it. Okay? He lowered minority unemployment. He made us energy independent. He made us respected around the world. Other countries quit running all over us. I mean, he did a lot of good things. But here's the side note to that. The guy was a jerk. The guy didn't know how to talk to people. The guy didn't know how to represent the presidency. He just didn't. And people didn't like him very much. If I had a boss, let's say I had a boss that paid me a tremendous amount of money, okay? I made this fantastic salary, but every day I went to work, I had to deal with a boss that was a jerk, and I dreaded going to work. I was getting paid great, but I hated my job I hated going into the office because I hated seeing him every day, because I knew he was going to say degrading, stupid things to me and was going to make me feel bad about myself and was going to make me feel like a loser and was going to talk down to me. Would I want to go to work no matter what they were paying? No. Well, that's what we had in this country. We had a president that was doing all these great things, but every time you turned on the news and saw the orange man, you were like, oh, and as a Republican, I'm sitting there praying, Lord, please don't let him say anything stupid today. Please, Lord, please don't let him say something dumb. And invariably, he always did. Who caused Donald Trump to not be reelected? Anybody know? Anybody care to raise their hand and answer that question? I'll tell you. Donald Trump caused himself to not be reelected. His toxic rhetoric. He could have chosen to ignore insults. He could have chosen to take the moral high ground. His answer was, I'm giving them back what they gave me. Wrong. He could have taken the moral high ground and he would have beat Nancy Pelosi every single time. He could have taken the moral high ground, kept his mouth shut, and just been presidential, and he'd have beat Chuck Schumer every single time. He would have won every encounter, but he didn't do that. He got up and he called people names. He called Crooked Hillary and Dirty Nancy and Sleepy Joe and all these sophomoric names. Guys, that's not how you run a country. It's just not. Can you imagine the Queen of England standing up in front of her country and calling Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada Silly Justin, Stupid Justin? Can you imagine her calling Angela Merkel Crazy Angie? No. The Queen of England is one of the most revered, respected figures in all of world leadership. Why? Because of the way she carries herself. And Donald Trump simply just didn't do that. Now, let's get back to my original topic, voter ID. I think we need it. I think that you need to identify 100% that the right people have voted, that they have the right and authority to vote, and that you have verified that that is the person voting. And there is nothing racist about that. You've got to show an ID to cash a check. You've got to show an ID in some places to pick your child up from daycare. You've got to show an ID if, let's say, and I'm not picking on anybody here, let's say you get a disability check. Let's say you get a Social Security check. Let's say you get a welfare check. When you go to the bank to cash that check, if you don't have direct deposit, what do you have to show? You got to show a form of ID. What is wrong with requiring Americans to prove that they are citizens of this country, that they have the right to vote, and that they are who they say they are? There is nothing racist about that. That is just good law and order and keeping our country and our voting system safe. All right, I'm Lonnie Watson, and I hope you have a blessed day. Take care.